According to the Bible, Babylon was founded by the descendants of Noah, among whom Nimrod played a major role, about 120 years after the flood, from 1770 to 1670 BC, and again in 612 to 320 BC. It is the largest city in the world, and the first in history with a population of over 200,000 people. It was originally called Babel, meaning confusion. According to the Bible, this is where God confused the languages of the nations. It is also famous for the Hanging Gardens of Semiramis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It became a center of trade between East and West, with merchants transporting goods by land and sea. In its rise, Babylon seemed impenetrable to its enemies. Everyone who has seen it and described it says about it that it is an unseen wonder city. What has led to the decline of one of the most flourishing societies? How was it that one of the most fortified cities in the world, which was said to have one of its surrounding walls so wide that 2 wagons could pass, was captured without a trace of battle? Stay with us until the end of the video to find out what led to the rise and fall of one of the most ancient and fabled cities in the world. The name Babylon is derived from Babil or Babilim. It is translated from the Akkadian language as Gate of God or Gate of the Gods, and the name Babylon itself comes from Greece. The source responsible for the great popularity of the city is the Bible itself. In it, the city is mentioned many times. In Genesis, for example, we can read the story of the Tower of Babel. The name of the city arose after confusion, as God previously called the people to speak different languages so that they could not understand each other, and this was to prevent them from building the great tower to the heavens. In Hebrew, the word Bavel is translated as confusion. The earliest known reference to Babylon was 3000 BC. Around 2200 BC, it was known as a temple site and belonged to the nearby city of Ur. Our familiar history of Babylon begins during the time of the so-called Old Babylonian Kingdom, during the reign of one of the most famous kings, Hammurabi, 1792 to 1750 BC. He ascended the throne after the abdication of his father, King Sin-Muballit. The new king very quickly turned Babylon into one of the most powerful and influential cities in all of Mesopotamia. The city also became known through the Hammurabi Code of Laws, one of the first comprehensive law collections. His laws exemplify the policy he pursues, aimed at preserving peace and promoting prosperity. Diplomacy is an integral part of his administration. The exceptional ruler succeeded in uniting all of Mesopotamia under the rule of Babylon in 1755 BC. It, in turn, at that time was already the largest city in the world. Hammurabi then called the new United Kingdom Babylonia. However, when King Hammurabi passed away, the empire disintegrated, and Babylonia shrank in size and power. In 1595 BC, Babylon was taken by the Hittites, but they only ruled for 20 years, after which the Kassites took over. The city-state of Babylon became the capital of Babylonia and became the religious center of the kingdom. Let us know in the comments which ancient city you've always been interested in learning more about, and we will make a video about the city whose name is repeated the most times in the comments. In 1234 BC, Babylon became subject to Assyria, and in 1158 BC was sacked by the Elamites. The importance of the city grew when Nebuchadnezzar I chose it as his capital, although the dynasty he created was not local. Around the 10th century BC, waves of Aramaic migrants from northern Syria to Babylon greatly exacerbated the tension. Until the fall of Assyria towards the end of the 7th century BC, there were continuous struggles for control of the city between the Assyrians and the Arameans. The native Babylonians began to claim various privileges, such as exclusion from forced labor, exemption from certain taxes, and a ban on being sent to prison. The trade-rich Babylonians were put under pressure by the restless migrants. This made them prefer Assyrian rule over Aramaic and Chaldean rule. Serious engagement with Assyria, however, began during the reign of Tiglath-Pileser III, 744 to 727 BC, who succeeded in suppressing the pressure of the Chaldean tribes on the city. Just a few years later, the Assyrian king Sennacherib, 704 to 681 BC, sacked and destroyed the city, scattering its remains to demonstrate to his enemies what would await them if they dared to challenge him. These actions of his caused a lot of negative feelings, both in the population and in those closest to him. Very soon after, his sons kill him. His successor, his son Esarhaddon, 680 to 669 BC, drove out the raiding tribes and recovered the lands his father had seized from the Babylonians. He rebuilds the city and restores its former glory. Somewhere in the middle of the 7th century BC, the city was struck by a new misfortune. Civil war broke out between the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal and his brother, who ruled Babylonia. Ashurbanipal besieged Babylonia and starved it. In 648 BC, Babylon surrenders. Ashurbanipal is said to have cleansed the city of evil spirits, believed to have brought him only trouble. This is a time when the city is already well known as a center of knowledge and culture. Babylon became the capital of the Neo-Babylonian kingdom, ruled by the Chaldean king Nabopolassar in 605 BC. When his son Nebuchadnezzar II took over the kingdom, it experienced its apogee in its development and became an imperial power. The new rulers stabilized and reformed the city, and the activities were carried out by numerous labor brigades from different parts of the country, which contributed to the diversity of the population. The most beautiful and impressive structures in all of Mesopotamia were created. The ancient writers described Babylon in this period and speak of it with awe and reverence, felt even in their very words. Herodotus shares the following:
"The city is laid out on a wide plain. It is shaped in an absolutely exact square. There is no other city on earth that comes close to its magnificence. The whole is surrounded by a wide moat full of water, and behind it rises a wall 26 meters wide and 105 meters high."
Other writers also described the city at the time. They again began to speak of the magnificence of Babylon, and all are particularly impressed by its walls, which have been called a wonder of the world. According to Diodorus Siculus, under the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, the Hanging Gardens were also built, which today are considered perhaps the greatest miracle of antiquity. The Hanging Gardens are described very well by Diodorus in his Bibliotheca Historica.
There were also the so-called Hanging Gardens, which were built not by the Assyrian queen Semiramis, but by the later Syrian king so that he could please one of his mistresses. It is said that she was of the Persian race, and because she was suffering for her fields and mountains, she asked the king to green the court and make it look like a Persian landscape.
However, to this day, these gardens are known to history as the Hanging Gardens of Semiramis. They were handmade terraces of flora and fauna, irrigated by a mechanism that was itself considered a world wonder. Let us know in a comment if you have heard of them. Would you like us to make an in-depth video about Hanging Gardens, looking at their history and setup? We come to 556 to 539 BC, when the new ruler Nabonidus is living away from Babylon. This was necessary due to the fact that he conducted military operations in Arabia, which lasted about 10 years. His regent in Babylon was Belshazzar. The city was attacked by the Persians, then ruled by Cyrus II in 539 BC. The strangest thing is that one of the most well-fortified cities in the world at that time offered almost no resistance. Legend has it that Cyrus diverted the Euphrates River, which passes through the city. Thus, the level of the river dropped, and he and his army suddenly invaded the river and captured the city from the inside. However, this legend has not been historically confirmed. This remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries related to ancient Babylon to this day. The expansion of the Persian Empire by the Achaemenids in 539 BC absorbed Babylonia, along with the Median Kingdom, Syria, Palestine, and Lydia. Babylon became the capital of the richest satrapy. Before long, however, a rebellion broke out against Xerxes I, and his beautiful fortifications and temples were destroyed, and the golden statue of Marduk was melted down. In 331 BC, Alexander the Great conquered the city after the Battle of Gaugamela and was accepted as its liberator by the Persians. Macedonian immediately issued an order to restore the temples. He very quickly understood the commercial importance of Babylon and told its satrap to mint coins and start building a port. In 323, at the age of 34, Alexander died in Nebuchadnezzar's palace. His dream of making Babylon the capital of his own empire never materialized. Instead, Babylon entered the sphere of influence of ancient Greek culture and became a center for the development of Hellenistic science, especially astronomy. It is in the future that many writings from this period will be revealed that will prove fundamental to the knowledge of the world and the cosmos. After the division of Alexander's empire between the Diadochi, Babylon passed to the Seleucid dynasty in 312 BC. The new kings, however, had a different vision for their empire and built their capital in Seleucia, moving part of Babylonians' population there in 275 BC. Babylon remained under Persian rule for 9 centuries until about 650 AD. It preserves its culture and inhabitants who speak a variation of Aramaic. Traces of their culture are left in the Jewish Tanakh Bible, the Gnostic religion of Mandaeanism, the Eastern Christian churches, and Manichaeism. Christianity entered Mesopotamia in the 1st and 2nd centuries, and Babylon was the seat of the bishop of the East until the arrival of the Muslims. Minted coins from Parthian, Persian, and Arab times prove that it was a continuously inhabited settlement. The Islamization of the area is detrimental to the city. Its importance waned, and the Aramaic and Eastern Christian churches were marginalized. In the 10th century, Ibn Hawqal, and in the 13th century, the Arab scholar Al-Qazwini described Babylon as a small village. The latter describes a well, is known as Daniel's dungeon, an object of worship by Christians and Jews during the holidays. Muslims venerated the tomb of Amran ibn Ali. Writings about the fall of one of the most flourishing civilizations and the city becoming a cultural beehive can be found in medieval Arabic written sources. There, Babylon is mentioned as a quarry for bricks used in constructions from Baghdad to Basra. European travelers, in most cases, cannot find it or confuse it with Fallujah. Benjamin of Tudela, a 12th century traveler, mentions Babylon, but it is unclear whether he was there. Others refer to Baghdad as Babylon or New Babylon and describe a number of structures in the area as remnants of the Tower of Babel. For almost 2,000 years, the site of Babylon was forgotten. Today, a few kilometers from Baghdad, Iraq, there is the largest open-air museum in the world. The only building preserved from that time is the Theater of Babylon. Archaeologists, however, do not stop to this day to discover legacies left by our ancestors who inhabited these latitudes.
Imagine a world hidden in the heart of the inhospitable desert. Rain is anger, and a world where the whispers of a long-lost civilization echo that of the little people. This is not a tale from the pages of Tolkien, nor a tale woven from the threads of Gulliver's Travels. This is the ancient city of Makunik, a place where history and myth intertwine in the most incredible way. Often referred to today as the City of Dwarves, Makunik has been the epicenter of heated debates, fascinating hypotheses, and fascinating stories. From local folklore to academic debates, the stories of the city's miniature inhabitants spark a curiosity that transcends the boundaries of common sense. We are embarking on a journey that will take us back in time, 5 millennia to be exact. Traveling, we will try to unravel the mysterious past of Makunik, sifting through archaeological evidence, historical assumptions, and hypotheses bordering on the realm of the fantastic. The remains of Makunik are a testament to a bygone era. What secrets does this ancient city hide? Was it really the refuge of a race of dwarves, as some researchers believe? Or is the story more extensive? Location and discoveries. In the heart of Iran, among the undulating dunes of Dasht-i-Lut deserts, lie the province of Shahdad, a place that at first glance looks deserted. But as is often the case, appearances are deceiving. It was here in the arid area that the ancient city of Makunik was discovered, a city that would attract the attention of the world. For many years, Makunik lay buried beneath the sands, its secrets shrouded by the merciless sand winds. It was not until 1946 that this lost civilization began to emerge from its sandy shroud. In a place where no one expected to find traces of ancient civilizations, the Faculty of Geography of the University of Tehran makes a discovery that will rewrite history. It's a discovery that breathes life into a place that was thought to have been devoid of human habitation. The discovery of pottery in Shahdad provides the first signs of the existence of civilization that flourished in the heart of the Lut Desert, a civilization that developed in such a harsh and unforgiving landscape. This baffles researchers. However, it soon becomes clear that the remains of Makunik hold the key to unlocking a fascinating chapter in human history dating back to the late 4th millennial BC, a time when the world was completely different and people were just beginning to leave indelible marks on history. Exploring the city. Since the initial discovery, the scientific community has been overcome with curiosity. Makunik attracted archaeologists from all over the world. This nondescript sketch of the desert became the epicenter of one of the largest archaeological expeditions, which lasted 8 years from 1948 to 1956. This was not just an excavation, but a reclamation process. With the removal of each subsequent layer of sand, the ancient city of Monarch began to take shape. The finds began to tell the story of the city. It turned out to be a microcosm of a fully functioning society. There were workshops and where the craftsmen engaged in trade. Open-air residential neighborhoods paint a picture of the everyday lives of families and communities. Cemeteries have also been discovered, reminding us of the inevitable cycle of life and death. Perhaps the most remarkable discovery was the unearthing of over 800 ancient graves. Each of them bears silent testimony to a life that was lived in a time and place so far removed from our own. Archaeologists dig deeper and deeper, and Makunik begins to reveal its secrets. But as is often the case with such ancient objects, each answer only leads to more questions. Architecture and lifestyle. Upon entering the heart of the city, an intriguing feature begins to stand out: the unique architecture of this ancient city. From the houses to the driveways, from the ovens to the shelves, everything seems to have been designed and built on a different scale, one that speaks of a world suited and inhabited by people of smaller stature. In every corner of the city, from the height of the ceilings to the width of the doors, the architecture seems to have been created for residents who would be considerably shorter than the average person today. It is the architectural feature that has led many to call Makunik the City of Dwarves. Makunik was a bustling hub of activity, a town where jewelers, artisans, and farmers played their part in the rich daily life. The presence of farmers suggests a landscape that, despite the harsh desert conditions, has been carefully and successfully cultivated. Yet for all its vibrance and life, there is a mystery about Makunik. At some point in its history, this bustling city was suddenly abandoned. Residents left their homes, leaving behind their belongings as if they intended to return. They sealed all the doors of the buildings with mud and abandoned the city. Why did they leave it? Because of a natural disaster, war, or something completely different? And why did they never come back? Mysterious departure. Houses left untouched and belongings seemingly frozen in time. The story of this sudden departure is shrouded in uncertainty and speculation, but among the emerging hypotheses, one seems to stand out: the evidence of a severe drought. The desert that surrounds Makunik today is one of the driest and harshest places on Earth. Yet the traces found in the ancient city suggest a time when this landscape was a thriving agricultural community, a time when the people of Monarch, with their dexterous hands, tamed the land and drew life from the unforgiving desert soil. But as we know, the climate can be as fickle as fate itself. Geological records indicate that a severe drought occurred in the region about 5,000 years ago. It was so large that it most likely turned the once fertile lands into the barren desert we see today. Could this be the force that drove the people from the city and their homes? The prospect of dwindling water supplies and failed crops must have been dire. With their livelihood threatened and their survival in jeopardy, the people of Monarch may have had no choice but to leave their city and search for more favorable lands. The drought theory is compelling, but it's still just a theory. The real reason for the sudden departure of the townspeople remains a mystery. Controversies and hypotheses. Like any other story that stretches into the mist of time, Monarch is not within controversy and conjecture. The most convincing for now is the hypothesis that gave the city its nickname, the City of Dwarves. For some, Makunik's unique architecture, designed for people of smaller stature, is compelling evidence that this city was home to a race of ancient dwarves. Yet not all archaeologists agree. Some of them caution against jumping to conclusions, saying that even though the inhabitants were smaller than modern humans, that doesn't necessarily mean they were the mythical dwarves we all immediately think of. The debate is further fueled by the discovery of a strange mummy. Smugglers hoping to sell the artifact in Germany have been caught, and the mummy, reported to be just 25 centimeters tall, has been identified as possibly belonging to a 17-year-old man. The news spread instantly, firing the imaginations of dwarf theorists. However, skeptics immediately attacked the artifact. They claim the mummy is too small, even for a dwarf. Furthermore, the soil conditions in the region should not allow the preservation of intact skeletons or mummies. Therefore, they conclude that the mummy is probably fake. Even the city's architecture has been questioned. One argument suggests that the houses, which today are only 80 centimeters high, were originally almost twice as tall. Over time, erosion and geological changes may have buried a significant portion of the city, making the buildings appear smaller than they originally were. According to the research of Dr. Susan Martinez, author of the remarkable book, A History of the Little People, spiritually advanced civilizations around the world, there was an ancient race of miniature people who built their own communities in the distant past and inhabited the earth. She takes into account the legends of folk tales of dwarf gods existing in Mexico and Peru, the Mahuns of Hawaii, the Ninhus of the Cherokee tribe, the African Pygmies, and the Semangs of Malaysia. According to Dr. Martinez, the theory of the existence of ancient dwarfs finds confirmation in numerous archaeological discoveries: narrow underground tunnels, miniature sarcophagi, low tomb entrances, and extremely small and cramped dwellings. Despite these controversies and conjectures, the true history of the city, as well as the city itself, remains partially buried, which does not help in finding the right answers. Cultural context. Beyond archaeological evidence and scientific conjecture, Makunik's story resonates in cultures around the world. The narrative of the little people is not unique to the ancient Iranian city. It resonates in the folklore and mythology of countless cultures. From The Hobbits in Middle-earth by J.R.R. Tolkien to the Midgets in Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, the existence of tiny creatures has been a source of fascination and curiosity through human history. Such narratives are not limited to the realm of fiction. Physical remains of small people have been recorded in various places, such as in the western United States, adding another tantalizing possibility to the folklore. If these creatures could exist elsewhere, why not in the ancient city of Makunik? Interestingly, the saga of the little people does not end in the dusty pages of history. Recent researchers shows that the inhabitants of the Makunik regions are generally shorter in stature, and they rarely reach 150 centimeters. Although not as small as the legendary dwarves, who are supposed to have been between 40 and 70 centimeters, this suggests a genetic predisposition to shorter stature among the local population. In the world of archaeology, discoveries often led to more questions than answers, and the ancient city of Makunik is no exception. Despite decades of focused research, many aspects of this Bronze Age city remain shrouded in mystery. Archaeologists agree that the city dates from the late 4th millennial BC, placing it firmly within the Bronze Age, a period marked by significant advances in metalworking, social structure, and trade. Yet it remains a mystery on how a civilization of supposedly smaller stature could have thrived in this harsh condition of the Dasht-i-Lut Desert and developed such an advanced society. The question remains as to why the city was actually abandoned. Current theories point to a severe drought, but definitive evidence is still lacking. Were there other factors? The sudden departure of the residents, who leave their belongings behind, adds further mystique to the story. If you like what we do, please support us by telling at least one more person about our channel.